Before we start the video, I want to give a quick reminder. Because of how long this YouTube video is, I want you to treat it as if you were watching a full-length feature film. So that means that instead of watching this on your iPhone or iPad, you should watch this on the TV. Get your dinner out, because this video is about to be almost 3 hours long. 3 hours long worth of content. Yep, I did a lot for this video. Now let's begin. Since my Contre Jour video received decent praise thanks to it being a premiere instead of an official upload, I've decided to do the same thing with the other video game that I want to spread the word about, Feed Me Oil. And for this special occasion, I want to make an update to this channel. In case if I'm not allowed to use bubbles because of copyright, I've decided to change my channel profile to make the pipe from Feed Me Oil become anthropomorphic. In fact, here is my new channel avatar coming up. So, what do you think? If you've seen my last two videos, you probably know what the pipe from Feed Me Oil was gonna look like with this anthropomorphic design. I worked hard with the design to make him less freaky as possible. I do request Gamey Stuff to not use this character in his videos since this is my character. But with that said, let's continue on with the video. Now, one thing you might have also noticed is that the music is longer and it doesn't really sound the same, but it is. That's because I found the higher quality versions of the music from Feed Me Oil thanks to Logic Pro. It's the latest technology, and so I can be able to achieve the music to perfection. Oh wait, what? What's this? You asked for it. There, now it's in lower quality. Are you happy about that? You say you prefer everything to be in lower quality and not make it sound like perfection? Well, I hate to say this, but not everyone likes low quality music and sound effects. I've heard that some people actually dislike it that way because it sounds unprofessional. Anyways, let's cut to the chase and change everything back to higher quality. How did we get here? So, Feed Me Oil's story begins pretty recently in 2009 because of one person, Alexander Ilin. After he got a master's degree on computer science, he wanted to experiment his skills by making the most affordable game ever. However, unlike other video game developers who made one or two more video games before their big success, Alexander Ilin had no prior experience in video game development before Feed Me Oil. According to the information that I got about him, before working on Feed Me Oil, he worked as a software developer for business applications on systems like .NET and Ruby. And he worked on the animation for the 2008 first-person shooter game Uber Soldier 2, a sequel to the first game that was made in 2005. He started development for Feed Me Oil in August 2010. Now, I feel like no one really gets the memo about Feed Me Oil's inspiration. According to multiple reviews, people's comments, and literally every single piece of media I found, they all come to the same conclusion. Everyone thinks that Feed Me Oil's main inspiration comes from the 2008 Wii game, World of Goo. However, I want to clarify something, if not touch on a bit of frustration on the fact that I grew up with one series, but not the other. The fact that World of Goo's quirky aesthetic was the main inspiration for Feed Me Oil is unique, but it's 100% false. The gameplays are also completely different. In World of Goo, you're stacking goo balls up to a pipe to discover the sky. World of Goo also provides a very interesting, dark, and confusing narrative at the same time. Feed Me Oil, on the other hand, requires you to use tools to manipulate the oil from the pipe and then into the monster's mouth. So, in conclusion, did Feed Me Oil borrow most of World of Goo's similarities? No. Does that mean it's similar? No. Is it unintentionally a ripoff of World of Goo? No, nein, niet, igna. I did eventually try the mobile port of World of Goo, and yeah, it's not similar. So, what was Fimiol's real inspiration? According to an interview, Alexander Illen said that he got inspired to make Fimiol when he saw the trailer to an upcoming PS3 game titled The Unfinished Swan. The gameplay revolved around throwing oil blobs to reveal more of the area around the player. Like World of Goo, The Unfinished Swan also had a very dark narrative that took inspirations from Alice in Wonderland. Alexander Illen was so blown away by the oil physics that he decided to make an oil physics puzzle game for himself. Unfortunately, he only designed the game for the iPhone aspect ratio, which was, at the time, 480x pixels by 320y pixels. The iPad came out in April 2010, which had a different ratio, which was 1024x pixels by 728y pixels, which basically added more y pixels. Fimiol started development in August 2010, but keep in mind that Illen lived in Russia, and the iPad didn't come into Russia until November 8th or 9th of 2010, and by then some of the level designs were already finished. When Alexander Illen realized the iPad had a different resolution and he already finished some of the levels for Fimiol, he didn't want to redo the levels to fit the aspect ratio, since trying to continue off of one drawing is a lot harder than just making a fresh new drawing. And so, he added borders to prevent the player from seeing any objects abruptly stopping. In January to February 2011, he hired a deal by Chilingo to continue to finish the game until release. He also founded his own independent company, Holy Water Games. Finally, on May 18, 2011, the game finally released at the iOS App Store for around $1. It had 3 chapters per launch: Big Oil Pipeline, Red Alert, and Feed 'em All. The plot is that the oil pipe unclogged itself, causing the habitat to enter deforestation. Thankfully, a large collection of monsters were called to prevent deforestation, and it's up to you to guide the oil using the various numbers of elements. One thing to note about Fimiol is that the music gets very repetitive very fast. It turns out the supposed jazzy background music is actually loops from GarageBand / Logic Pro. These loops last around 20 seconds to an annoying 4 seconds. In total, there were 7 loops in the game: 2 upright bass loops, 1 piano and electric piano, 2 music box loops, and 1 banjo loop, which actually never gets old. At least the music changes every time you beat a level, but even then it gets annoying. Like, I challenge you to just sit back, and for the next 2 minutes, I will be playing the same loop over and over again, and try and see if you cannot flip out and get all crazy. Are you ready? Start now. just when you feel like you're so frustrated you want to rip your hair off, you complete the level, and then a new song plays. So then you aren't crazy anymore. But then a few levels later, you're tortured with the same bloody song that had already driven you crazy about 2 minutes ago. That's how annoying the songs are. Now, since I provided walkthroughs for Contre Jour in my other documentary, I'll do the same thing for Feed Me Oil. So let's see what's in store. Literally taking a look at chapters 1 through 3. The first level introduces the titular pipe to guide the oil into the monster. The next level introduces hints and platforms. The next level carries on by testing your skills with a platform. It shows that in order to get 3 stars, you have to have 3 elements in the toolbar that you didn't place into the level. This level introduces windmills. To change the rotation, you turn the object by dragging the arrows in a circular motion. This level tests your skills on the windmill. Buttons are introduced in level 1-6, which when touched by oil, causes a lift or movable object to, well, move. This level tests your skills with the button. Fans will push the oil in the fan's direction. This level tests your skills with the fan. Pink winds are introduced in level 11, which will turn the oil in the direction they're moving. Blue winds are larger and stronger than pink ones. Sometimes the atmosphere changes to fit the background the level is in. Now we are in chapter 2, which introduces us to the magnet which attracts the oil. This level introduces the fact that magnets can be used like a boomerang to fling the oil. As you progress into another chapter, a cooldown is added to prevent you from simply blasting your way through the level with hints. This increases by 15 seconds every chapter. This level introduces the fact that some platforms move on their own without any buttons. The color changing element is introduced in this level. Sometimes the monster needs colored oil. Starting on 2-9, the difficulty really starts to ramp up, and levels start taking more than one attempt to get it with 3 stars. This level has become one of my least favorite levels because it is a completely random level. Sometimes, some of the magnets are stationary. Orange wind goes only in one direction and can't be changed because it is stationary. In Chapter 3, yellow buttons are introduced. They are the same as red buttons, but they only work if held down by oil. This level introduces the fact that at times there can be more than one pipe. Most players would usually cheat and skip all the buttons when going for 3 stars, but here's a way to do it with 3 stars and collecting every button. Except the red one, obviously. That one's a trap. You gotta be very quick for this one. There's no way to avoid the button, and you have to be fast as possible to get the oil before the lid closes. Level 3-11 is a very annoying pain in the arse level for getting it with 3 stars. Exclusive to the iOS version, one extra concept that Fumio added were bonus levels, which were unlocked by collecting a certain star requirement. These levels altered the gameplay differently in these levels. Unfortunately, if someone has these bonus levels, 3 out of 4 are still playable, since to unlock the last one requires gifting the game to a friend through Chilingo's social gaming platform Crystal. Sadly, the service shut down on June 22, 2013, making the level unplayable. This level alters the gravity, with there being no gravity in the level at all. This level makes the gravity become negative. This level expands on the concept of the orange wind, making it appear like the infinite symbol, but you have to place the oil in 2 separate parts. Even though the last bonus level is currently unplayable, thankfully someone by the name of DNTN31 managed to get some footage of how to beat the level with 3 stars. In this level, there are 2 separate colors, but you can only use 1 platform, and you also have to make the 2 oils not collide with each other. A new chapter added. On June 13th, 2011, the game got its first update, which was fixing minor bugs. Then on July 19th, 2011, the game got its 4th chapter, the Rainbow. No new elements were introduced, but it added a cool new feature. The oil can go through 2 color-changing elements and come out as a secondary color, like pigment colors. Red mixed with blue equals purple, yellow mixed with blue equals green, and yellow mixed with red equals orange. The other noteworthy thing is that the 2 upright bass loops had different variations of them. The cool upright bass loop was still kept, but in its place in this chapter and the next one is a newer, longer version in chapter 4 composed by Alexander Valinsky. As for the other double bass loop, it was replaced by the newer, longer version, also composed by Alexander Valinsky. This would make a ton of sense considering how annoying that loop was. In this level, it introduces a new track called Blues 1, also composed by Alexander Valinsky. At this point, the difficulty really starts to get frustrating, as for this specific level, it took me way more attempts, even if I knew how to beat the level with 3 stars, and those are all because of making minor adjustments. Some of you people watching this video will notice that this level took its inspiration from the game's app icon. Taking inspiration from the hourglass level, the level looks simple until you realize that the goals are actually opposite of where the pipes are. So you have to make them go the opposite way without colliding. This level usually takes me a few attempts to get it right, but for this playthrough I beat it on my first try. This is the only level post Chapter 3 that still uses the old cool upright bass loop, even though there was a variant of the song that replaced it. Another pain in the arse level. This one takes me a few attempts to get it right. And one important thing to note, even if you know how to beat the level with 3 stars does not mean you're gonna get on your first try. It takes skill and a ton of attempts, which is where most of your playtime comes from trying to adjust objects very pixel perfectly. I'd say that level 4-13 is the hardest level for this chapter because of the blue wind. Sometimes, and this was not intended by the developer, the oil won't stick to the blue wind and will actually detach off of itself, which is very annoying, but thankfully this didn't take as much attempts as I thought it would. Sadly, the remaining 2 levels for Chapter 4 are all pain in the arse levels, which require you to lose a lot of elements to get 3 stars. Even if you know what you're doing, sometimes you can make a single mistake, requiring a pixel-perfect adjustment. Again, it's what I've said in Chapter 4, level 4-11. A new element. On September 22nd, 2011, Feed Me Oil got its 5th chapter, Upside Down. This time it does introduce a new object, the gravity icon. When the oil touches it, it flips gravity. This is one of 2 very annoying levels where you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can tap the pipe. You also have to time it right. These kinds of levels are called auto-scrollers, which are natural enemies to speedrunners because they want to complete the game as fast as possible. It is possible to cheat in level 5-5 by skipping the button, but the intended method is actually much faster and more reliable. I'm not kidding. This level is considered by me to be the worst and hardest level in female history, mainly because of how inconsistent the level it is. I did find an easier method back in 2024, but even then still, it does raise the difficulty only very small and not that significant. However, I got this on my first try. Even though you could use a platform to prevent more oil from flying off depending on how you place the fan, for this video I decided to only use the fan. It does, however, make the level harder though, so if you want to try to do the easiest solution, I'd best recommend you add in the platform in case the oil flies off farther, because you don't want to waste too much so that you can still be able to complete the level. This is one of the other two very annoying wait levels, so you have to wait a while. Most people tend to go for a harder method of completing the level, but just recently, around early 2025, I found an easier method to do it. This level is very annoying and is another pain in the arse level. In fact, this is probably my second least favorite level because of how inconsistent it is. Someone uploaded a few pictures showing a timeline of a quicker and faster way to beat this level, and in this video, I'll show you how to do it. Ignore the lift in level 5-13. It was added to troll people into thinking that the lift is useful, but it's not. Even when I tried to use all my elements, I still haven't found a way to try to beat the level with the lift being useful. So just skip it. And now for the last level of Chapter 5, most people would often go for a faster, yet harder version of the level, which involves using the blue wind to clip through the first gate so that the oil can reach it to the second gate. However, just recently I found a way to do it without having to clip through the gate. It's longer, and I think this was the original 3-star solution intended by the developer. But I'm not done yet. There is still one more thing that Feed Me Oil added in when Chapter 5 was released. Inspired by the new element, Alexander Illen made Antigravity mode, which is basically playing the same old levels, but the gravity is negative and with the addition of all the elements, and levels being tough, and some stationary objects being rearranged to make the levels more difficult. Now, at the time of writing this script, I did not have anti-gravity on the old iOS version of the game. I only had this on the MacBook version, and was going to delay it to that part. However, after finishing writing this script, I managed to save the IPA file of the old version of Vimeo that was linked to my Apple account and was able to save it. When I downloaded it on my iPad mini through Apple Configurator, I was able to make the purchases saved there, and that meant that I could have anti-gravity on the old version of the game. I have been wanting to get it on that old version for 2 years straight, but was never able to do it until now. So, let's take a look at Antigravity Chapters 1 through 5. And yes, this does mean we're going to have to look at them all over again. I hope you don't mind. To anyone watching this video who isn't really into walkthroughs, I want to let you know that this video is treated as a walkthrough/documentary. So in case if you want to skip long parts of the video where it's just walkthroughs, I'll provide timestamps in the videos. Anti-Gravity level 1-9 used to be one of the most precise, hardest, and pixel-perfect levels in Anti-Gravity, but since I have the older version of the game, I can now complete it with no difficulty. For some reason, the next 2 levels took longer to complete because of the solutions needed. Admittedly, this level, Antigravity level 2-4, used to be a fun, enjoyable level in the normal version, but with Antigravity, it's a little bit more difficult. In fact, I even had some sort of frustration when beating the level since I knew it was hard. For some weird reason, the system software I used to record my iPad mini first generation decided to crash on me, so I had to take the time to re-record it. In my old 2024 videos discussing about the anti-gravity version of Female, I made the bold statement that anti-gravity level 2-8 was impossible to beat the level with 3 stars and collect the button at the same time. However, I found a method that involved collecting the button with 3 stars that was found by using the Mac version of the game, discovered in December of 2024. At this point, 3 stars kinda getting a little bit difficult and more unfair and a lot more attempts just to get them. But then again, this is anti-gravity, and it's supposed to be harder than the normal levels. For some weird reason, in levels 10, 12, and 15, the banjo and cool upright bass loops are replaced with bass 1 and the extended version called bass 12 by Alexander Felinsky. Oh, and one other thing, some people may use a harder version of it, but after taking a look at the hints, 1-star hints, I realized that I could remove 2 platforms and still be able to beat the level. Level 2-12 is my least favorite anti-gravity level, mainly because of its 3-star difficulty. In fact, I only complete the level with 3 stars for completion's sakes on going for every level for 3 stars on that said chapter. And because of how big a difficulty it is, it actually took me way more attempts just to get it a single time. A function that was implemented in Female to make the game more fair to play was that if any time oil exited out of the screen, it gets teleported back to the starting point of the pipe. In this specific level, I was worried about it backfiring against me, but it turns out it actually doesn't, since for some weird reason in anti-gravity, It seems that the screen of the game is placed vertically instead of horizontally, making the level easier. Level Antigravity 3-3 is another level that I struggled on. Usually I complete this level with no problem, but since I'm playing the old version of the game, where oil doesn't easily cling on to blue wind, it took me a great deal of 3 minutes and 30 seconds just to complete it a single time, and making some minor adjustments. The idea of anti-gravity is an interesting and fun concept, but sometimes there are occasions when it's executed kind of lazily. For example, in anti-gravity level 3-4, to beat it with 3 stars, you complete the level the exact same way you did in the normal level. And even with 4 unused elements? What? An easier method of beating Antigravity 5-5 was found after I examined the level's 1-star hints. In my previous 2024 videos about Antigravity Chapter 3, I made the bold statement that you could not beat this level anti-gravity version even if you had an extra element with 3 stars. However, in April 2024, I was able to find this method and beat it with 3 stars. That was just a few months after I released the video. In fact, almost a month. So it quickly went outdated. Sadly, as of the time of making this video, which is October 2025, Anti-Gravity level 3-8 remains the only level where it is not possible to complete the level when trying to go for the button. The closest that you can get is 1 unused element, and the closest theoretical is 2 unused elements, though it has not been done before. So this remains the only level where you have no choice but to cheat on the level. This is another level that I really don't like in Antigravity mode. You're just completed a few hard levels and then this is now suddenly an easy level. For no reason. And this is another 4 unused element solution. For some weird reason, beating level 4-2 anti-gravity has become much easier and faster with this solution I found. I had no idea you could be able to beat Antigravity level 5-3 4 unused elements really fast, since from where I saw the guide, it took him about 30 seconds to complete the level using the method he took. For some weird reason, whenever I tried to use the old method in Antigravity 4-6, for some reason I was unable to do it. So I had to use a fan. However, I'm now more pixel perfect and can beat it the old way. Sadly, the new method I discovered that did not use the magnet never worked in the old version. So I had to revert back to using the old method. But even then still, I took some time on the level. Level 4-9 also became a bit more inconsistent in the old version. You might think I'm saying the same stuff over and over again, and you'd be correct for level 4-12, for it is made a little bit harder because of the fact that oil does not stick to blue wind easily in the old version. I know this video is getting boring, but we're on the final chapter of Antigravity, for this version though, so I hope you can be able to stick with me. Sadly, Anti-Gravity level 5-4 is still another annoying level, mainly because you have to time it right and it's a little bit more inconsistent. But it is a little bit easier though. Are we starting to run out of ideas here, Alexander? Because this is another level where you have to complete the level the exact same way you did in the normal level. Now this is another example I like for Alexander Illen pulling off a difficulty, because I like how it jumps straight from a 6 unused element walkthrough to a 3 unused element walkthrough. Now, because of how fast the oil flowed in that version, I wanted to give myself a challenge to try and see if I could be able to beat Anti-Gravity level 5-8 with 4 unused elements. And I actually did, and I ended up doing it very fast. Unfortunately, 5-9 has become more annoying because of how inconsistent it is. And finally, I'd have to say this, but I feel like the final goal tough obstacle is level 5-11, Simply because of how hard it is the last hardest obstacle to topple before you can be able to complete the other levels, which are simply easy. And we are back to another example where to complete the level with 3 stars, you do exactly the same thing like you did in the normal version of the level. But this is actually the final one. Alright, we've made it to the last level, which means after this one we've still got a long way to go through because there's a lot to discuss about Female. But still, this is why I want to put the time and dedication to it. Also, the reason why I'm showing every single level is because this is meant to be a walkthrough / documentary of the Female series, providing both a documentary about its history and a walkthrough at the same time. A different platform? When the game first released, Female became increasingly popular, as it became the #1 downloaded app in the iOS App Store in its first week. Alexander Illen wasn't really expecting it to happen. As he said in his interview, he said he really wasn't trying to become #1, he was just trying to make the best game he could. And it definitely paid off. As requested by Chalingo, Alexander Illen wanted to spread his game to different platforms to make it the most affordable. On December 15, 2011, Female was then released to the first platform other than the iPhone and iPad, the MacBook. This version used to be a mystery, but thankfully someone saved the game so that it wasn't lost media. I found it, and it unfortunately works on my macOS Catalina and not my recent MacBook Sequoia. So this version of the game is a bit rough in the Mac version. Oil flows extremely fast in this version, and the maximum oil count number was doubled from 300 to 600 for some reason. Something else that's also noteworthy to mention is that this is the first version of the game where the 4 bonus levels are completely removed. It's likely that these levels were only planned to be in the initial release only and not later versions, so that's why they were made that big in its difficulty. But when more chapters were added, Alexander Illen thought that these bonus levels don't have a reason to exist, so this version doesn't have them, although they are still present in the Mac's game files. But don't you worry, this isn't the last time we'll be talking about those levels, just you wait and see. However, there's not really that much to talk about the Mac version of the game. It's just another version of the game that was ported over to something else. So let's move over to the next chapter then. Wait, there's a hidden chapter? The new year passed on, and Female was still going strong. It was also the year the unfinished Swan finally released. On April 30th, 2012, Windows Phone got the chance to have Female. However, this version is peculiar. Unlike the Mac version, where the 4 bonus levels were still found in the game's files, but access to them was not possible, this time these levels were completely removed from the Windows Phone's game files. It was also the only reason to have a brand new 6th chapter, Hitless Holes. This was due to an error that I like to call the The Windows Phone craze of 2012. Windows wanted to try to compete with Apple in the phone industry, but by 2012 they were not doing great. Chilingo noticed this and requested developers to make exclusive content for the platform, and Vimeo was the first to do that. No other release has this chapter and has continued to be an enigma. Thankfully, all 15 levels have been recorded, so let's see what they are. The new object is the teleporter, which teleports oil. This level introduces the fact that if oil enters the wrong teleporter, it gets teleported in the wrong direction. This level introduces more than one teleporter, which each different ones are color-coded to let the player know where exactly the oil is going. This is another one of my least favorite levels because of how easy the 3-star solution is. This level introduces the fact that you must not color the oil even if there are color-changing elements. There is an anti-gravity version of Chapter 6, but sadly not all the levels have been recorded. The only video I could ever find showing the anti-gravity version of Chapter 6 is of Level 3. However, this doesn't mean that the anti-gravity version of Chapter 6 is impossible, as someone did take a photo showing they did beat every single level 3 stars on Antigravity Chapter 6, and after digging into each of the level's XML files, I can at least give a preview of what the inventories for Antigravity Chapter 6 are going to look like. Unfortunately, I can only guess that Antigravity level 6-8 is going to be the exact same method for the normal version. So unless the buttons or movable lips are rearranged, I can only assume Antigravity Chapter 6 is a lazy chapter to make. But if someone does have Chapter 6 Antigravity on their Windows Phone, I'll update the video to include that said footage. However, there is still so much more that we need to talk about the female series. So let's head on right to... two more ports. After the Windows Phone release, Vimeo was released to 2 more platforms. Android was a competitor for Apple, and so it seemed that there were more users using Android than Apple. And so you can imagine the supply and demand for an Android port of Vimeo. And it was finally released on July 3rd, 2012. There's actually nothing that different to talk about this version, besides it being another port of the app. Also, I could barely find any footage of this version. There doesn't seem to be a lot of differences. Finally, Vimeo got its last release to a different platform on June 26, 2013, the PlayStation Mobile. In my own opinion, the idea to release Vimeo to PSM was kind of a weird decision. However, it does have one difference in this version. The original cool upright bass loop was completely replaced by the extended version introduced in Chapter 4. This was likely done because there were complaints about it being too short probably, although it's still present in the PSM's game files. And that was it for the first game. So, what was happening at the same time? A new game. So, what happened to Vimeo? Why is no one talking about it nowadays? Well, it actually used to be pretty popular, but then in 2013, it would start to become a pile of ashes. Well, okay, Vimeo 2 really isn't that bad, and I'll explain why. The game took a year to develop and was first teased in August of 2013. Prototypes for the game were shown at different gaming conferences, and people were excited about the game. This time, Alexander Illen took the time to adapt the iPad, iPhone, and the iPhone 5 aspect ratios. The iPhone 5 was released a year earlier and had a new aspect ratio of 1140 x pixels by 640 y pixels, which added more x pixels. Finally, on December 4th, 2013, exactly 12 years ago, Vimeo 2 was then finally released to the iOS App Store. The artwork has definitely improved, as you can see by this photo. It felt more realistic and impressive, and it had the potential to continue the legacy of the first game. Sadly, it has a lot of flaws that fans of the first game didn't like. Remember how I didn't like some of the levels in Vimeo 1 being incredibly easy? Well, it's gotten worse here. It seems that all the puzzles tend to focus on a more general audience, and they don't have hard puzzles like they did in the first game. Like, take a look at this level. Do you know how to beat this level with 3 stars? Go ahead. I'll let you think about it. After some time, you probably already know the answer. You place 1 fan on the right and 1 fan on the left. See? Painfully simple 3-star solution. I'm not trying to brag, but this is painfully simple. But the worst aspect of all, the game now has microtransactions. Except that they're completely optional and only required for finding the solutions to levels. And while yes, the first game did have this unholy trend of microtransactions, they were way more generous. Well, maybe aside from the fact that Antigravity was $1 on the iOS and Android versions only. Not to mention that during 2015, in the main menu of the game, you'd always be constantly interrupted by ad bubbles showing the latest games Chilingo made. However, Despite all these flaws, I still enjoy Female 2. Yep, you heard me right there. I still enjoy Female 2. Yes, I do agree about the puzzles being too easy. Again, not trying to brag, but I actually don't mind. Now that I've expressed every frustration about the sequel, let's take a look at the levels. This time, there were 4 chapters per launch instead of 3. So let's take a look and see what these chapters have. Instead of 3 unused elements to get 3 stars, this time it's 2 unused elements, but you get the first star through beating the level. Chapters are unlocked through star requirements, which are horrendously attempting the player to buy more 3-star solutions. In this level, the returning platform is used. In this level, we get a new object, the cannon. Unfortunately, the cannon is the reason why the levels are so easy. It's way too overpowered and can cause the oil to be shot outwards very fast. Way too fast because it makes getting from one area to the other easier. You can actually skip the long and boring star sucking animation by tapping the screen once the star pops up. This level reintroduces the returning red button. This level reintroduces the returning fan. Chapter 2 contains the most striking new feature the game has to offer, considering it was also the slogan for attracting more people. It introduces water physics. In real life, oil and water don't mix together, so when oil is released into water, the oil immediately fights its way to the surface. Oil does it in a similar way, with water reversing the oil's in-game gravity. This level introduces the fact that some of the water levels are completely submerged underwater. This level introduces the fact that buttons can either lower or rise water levels. This is one of my least favorite levels in Female 2. If the puzzles were designed to be oh so easy you can do them with your eyes closed, then this one does present a big difficulty spike, and it takes me a few attempts to get it with 3 stars. So I'll admit, the solution for being it for 3 stars is actually kinda clever. This level introduces the fact that sometimes the water can automatically move up and down. Chapter 3 reintroduces the windmill in a brand new way, which moves counterclockwise. This level introduces a differently colored windmill that moves clockwise. This level introduces heaters which blow the oil even further than fans can do. This level introduces passable walls. This level introduces electricity, which acts as a barrier preventing the oil from passing through it. It requires the red button to turn it off. Also, this level is my least favorite level of Chapter 3, given on how inconsistent it is. There are very rare occasions in Female 2 where the 3-star solutions for some puzzles are actually difficult. I'll admit, this one is really clever. Chapter 4 introduces the boomerang that causes the oil to move fast because of the ice. This has got to be the creepiest monster I've ever seen in female history. This is supposed to be a parody of Where's Waldo, but it looks absolutely hideous. Judging by this weird harpoon that you can see on the left of the pipe, it seems that this level was originally going to have a button that you need to press in order for the harpoon to raise upwards. I probably assume it's on top of the ceiling where the pipe is, so I showed you a way on how to get it, which it is still possible, though I don't know why he removed it. Oh wait, I know why. You could see it abruptly stop if you did on the iPad screen. This level is a little bit annoying to try and get for 3 stars, so again, it's another clever solution. literally nothing interesting with this chapter. Like the first game, Feed Me Oil 2 also got more chapters post-launch. Chapter 5 was released on January 16, 2014. Frustratingly, the new object was not a new element. Instead, it was a loader that acted out the same as a button, but Oil had to pass through it and wait for it to load up to activate it. This level introduces the fact that there can be more than one loader. This level is a little annoying considering how the second cannon has to be in a precise manner. And now we've come to the most boring level in all of Feed Me Oil history. The level requires you to just stop and wait for something to happen, and attempts can take a long time if you don't know what you're doing. You know, I probably consider Chapter 5 to have the most inconsistent 3-star solutions if you don't know what you're doing. This is another example of an annoying level. Out of all the levels in Female 2, this one is the most clever when it comes to 3-star solutions, where you have to sacrifice a tiny bit of oil to get the button, and let the remaining oil get into the goal. This level was really annoying and took me way more attempts than it should have just to place 2 elements. Okay, we have something interesting now. Chapter 6 was released on February 25th, 2014. This time it does bring back a returning object, the magnet. However, it works similar to the boomerang. Around this time, because of the overwhelmingly and popular conspiracy that World of Goo was the inspiration for Female, which it wasn't. Oh, do you want me to retell the whole story again? Alexander Illen saw it for himself, and for the second game, he did borrow some ideas from World of Goo. For example, the first level, the 6th chapter's monster, is a reference to the telescope at the end of World of Goo. In fact, for the second game, some of the level's monsters look like movie characters and internet references. Unfortunately, it is not possible to complete this level while going for the button for 3 stars. The closest you can get is 2 unused elements. By the way, the button turns off the air current if you're wondering, and you need the air current in 3 stars to make the oil go into the mouth. It is barely possible to get the button for 3 stars, but this involves using a mechanic that was not intended by the developer. When you tap the pipe, immediately close and then re-enter the app, and then the oil will shoot outwards with greater force than a cannon, although this was not intended by the developer. The developer intends to cheat on this level for 3 stars. This level is a reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This level is a reference to the 2008 Pixar film WALL-E. Although it is much easier to skip both the buttons in 3 stars, here is a method to do it without having to skip them. The final chapter for the entire Feed Me Oil series. Finally, on April 9th, 2014, in honor of Easter, the 7th and final chapter was unlocked. Now, you might have noticed some Easter eggs hidden throughout the 6 chapters. Well, there's 3 Easter eggs in each chapter, and 18 total are found. 15 needed to be collected to unlock the chapter. However, you all have to admit, not every Easter egg can be completed while trying to go for 3 stars, since to unlock the Easter egg, not only do you have to collect it, but you also have to beat the level in that said attempt. And because of that, only 16 out of 18 Easter eggs can be collected with 3 stars. The only ones that can't are 2-3 and 4-8. With the closest that you can get is 2 unused elements. So let's go through all that attention time span again and take a look at these Easter eggs and how to obtain them. Once we got them all, we can now see the 7th and final chapter. For a limited time during Easter 2014, the oil changed its color to look like molten chocolate. The new objects are bubbles. Each bubble can hold up to exactly 50 particles of oil. The bubbles range from 1 bubble to 6 bubbles. This level introduces spikes that pop bubbles which can help or hinder you. Go figure. You might have also noticed that some of the levels are revamped versions of levels from the first game. Also, if you're wondering if Epilogue 2 was released to different platforms, it was only released to one platform other than the iPhone and iPad, which was the Android. However, it actually took longer to get it to Android. The Android version was released around July 2015, and it had absolutely no differences aside from it being another port of the game. And this is the final level of Epilogue history. After that chapter has been released, no other chapters for both games have been made ever since. After Chapter 7 was added, it only received bug fixes on October 28, 2014, and on July 22nd, September 17th, and November 19th of 2015 under Chlingo. So there's nothing really that bad about Epilogue 2. The end of an era. After Epilogue 2 was last updated on November 19th, 2015, the whole year of 2016 passed by with nothing new happening. No new chapters, no new updates, no new people talking about the second game, no new anything. The thing about any type of video game is that it only is recognized when it launches or a new chapter is added. But once it becomes only update patches and bug fixes, it starts to decline in popularity. But sooner or later, in 2017, the situation would become much, much worse. What the heck happened to the first game? It was retweaked to make it feel like Epilogue 2. Some of the puzzles were changed in the anti-gravity mode. Oh, but the worst aspect of all, the magnet's force field has been shrunken down. Previously, Apple announced that iOS 11 was only going to support 64-bit apps, and that 32-bit users don't have a choice but they have to update. Also, with the continuation of the declining popularity of Epilogue, the game was removed from the Mac App Store, the Windows Phone Store, the Google Play Store, and the PlayStation Mobile Store, all in 2017, which meant that Epilogue only remained on the iOS App Store and Epilogue 2 on Android and iOS. Alexander Illen realized this and tried to update both games to 64-bit on iOS. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do about the other devices. So, on February 13th, 2017, for the first time in 5.1666667 years, Epilogue got an update that borrowed Epilogue 2's code with the different levels and backgrounds from the first game. However, I'm not going to go over every single level, normal, and anti-gravity on this version because this video is getting way too long already. If finished, I will do them in separate videos at some point. When they're released, I will put links in the description of this video. Unfortunately, as you would have predicted, the 4 bonus levels were axed, as was the case with all the other platforms. Along with the removal of the cool upright bass loop, the banjo and emotional piano loops were also removed, likely due to copyrights. And for a very short period within the span of 3 months, Epilogue was still under Chlingo. Unfortunately, something happened that we don't know exactly what happened. But Alexander Illen was forced to say goodbye to Chlingo and moved away to become an independent developer. Sadly, the first game didn't get a ton of updates afterwards, as after Femio was updated on May 15th, 2017 to remove the Chilingo brand, Femio got its last and most recent update on July 10th, 2017, and would not touch it again, as he supposedly planned to only update it once it became unsupported again. However, he continued on with Femio 2, as it got more updates since he was the one familiar with. He also managed to make other games through his company, Holy Water Games. However, these games were only generic and not as good as the Femio series. As of now, only one of these games is still up under Alexander Illen's App Store pages, Toonfall. Also at one point, Femio 2 supported iMessage stickers. Unfortunately, these have been removed at some point. However, not even Femio 2 managed to continue to receive updates regularly. After 2017, he was only updating Femio 2 once every year. In 2018, the iPhone X came out, which had an even larger aspect ratio of 2436 x pixels by 1125 y pixels, which basically added even more y pixels. Unfortunately, Alexander Illen could not bring back the artist for Femio 2, Björk Pultanelli, to come back and draw for the new aspect ratio. There were also no borders implemented in Femio 2, unlike the first game. So what did he do? He allowed the player to see objects abruptly stop. This is just lazy. Usually a game developer would never show any objects abruptly stop, and yet Femio 2 was the first to do the opposite. Well, yes, in reality, objects do abruptly stop outside of the allowed aspect ratio because you're only developing something for an allowed screen, but yet you're supposed to prevent this from happening and block everything that abruptly stops, or maybe extend the image. After that, Femio 2 got its last and most recent update on October 7th, 2019, and would not do anything at all with his games. And so this marks the end of Femio's legacy. The future of Femio is now. Also, as a side note, Femio 2's Android port was removed in 2022, so that means the only way to still enjoy the Femio series was to give up your Android and exchange it for an iPhone. That, or you could download the APK files on your Android through sketchy sites, but I wouldn't recommend it. Now, why did Chilingo do these bad decisions that made Femio lost in time? Chilingo really didn't mean to do any harm, but it was all because of a greedy company that made these decisions that caused Femio to be lost in time. Now I know what you're thinking, what evil company could do such a thing? Well, if you've done your research before, then you all probably know who is to blame for. EA, short for Electronic Arts, has been horrendously and infamously known as the most evil gaming company of our generation. They literally suck millions of dollars just for you to play a single one of their games. This is horrendous. And no, these are not opinions. EA is factually evil. Now, with that out of the way, what happened afterwards? And who entered into the forgotten realm of Femio? It was me. How I got into playing Femio. I wasn't really into playing Femio, as I actually never heard about it when it came out. As I said in my mobile ports video, I said I got introduced to the series in 2021.
Basically, I got introduced to it in 2021.
So how did I, a Red Ball fan, end up loving Femio? Well, it was because I was homesick with the Chilingo port of Red Ball 3. It was my favorite version of Red Ball 3, in fact my favorite out of the entire Red Ball series, and so when I lost 32-bit support in 2018, I was sad and emotional and wanted to try to get it back. But for 3 years, 2019 through 2021, I had no idea how to get them back. Around the new year of 2021, when Flash Player support ended for browsers, I tried to research on how to get those games back. I also wanted to review Chillingo's other games and see how good they are, if they were still up. I checked through Chillingo's long list of iOS games. I wanted to see the games mainly around 2011, the year the Red Ball 3 mobile port came out. And the trailer under the Red Ball 3 trailer just so happened to be Feed Me Oil. And I just so happened to be very fascinated by the immense graphics, and I wanted to try it out. Luckily for me, the game was still up, and on April 3rd, 2021, I downloaded the game. At first, I was disappointed by the music not being the same as the trailer, but I eventually liked the music more than the trailer's music. I didn't mind the music being annoying. Unfortunately, I was a complete noob and always used hints for every level. But then I only mattered about being the game. I thought it was a good game, but then I continued on and tried to get the Chillingo port of Red Ball 3 back. I finally did eventually get it back on Christmas Eve 2022. It wasn't until 2023 that I took re-interest into Feed Me Oil out of nostalgia, this time wanting to try to get every single level 3 stars. But when I got to Chapter 4, I really struggled with the difficulty. Levels took longer because at that time I wasn't good at placing elements pixel perfectly. I got stuck on 4-14 and suddenly realized that the walkthroughs I looked up were from an older version of the game. It was so old it would only work on my iPad first generation. Feed Me Oil ended up being the last app I downloaded on that iPad before Apple killed support for the App Store for that operating system. So I was very lucky to get that version. And I was able to beat that version of the game with all 3 stars. Eventually, I did beat the modern day version of the game with all 3 stars, but I couldn't for Antigravity. Antigravity can't be unlocked on my iPad first generation due to in-app purchases disabled on that device. Eventually, in March 2024, I finally managed to complete every single Antigravity level 3 stars on that version. Eventually, on August 25th, 2023, I tried the second game. Back in 2021, I didn't want to play Feed Me Oil 2 at first, considering the realistic graphics were something I wasn't into yet. But I tried it, and it was okay. Now I know every single level without having to look a walkthrough up, despite the fact that I did use a walkthrough the first time I played those games. Unfortunately, in August 2024, I would start to become concerned about losing Feed Me Oil. Unfortunately, the website for Holy Water Games went defunct. And so it meant I was worried I would lose both games. I started becoming concerned with fear, and started making my big plans for this series so that I could be able to make sure it wasn't lost to time and felt like it could be updated again. And so I felt like Feed Me Oil could continue on if the Holy Water Games logo was removed from the start, which for both games they were. But after celebrating the success of my mobile ports video on June 22nd, 2025, something sad happened. When I checked Alexander Illin's App Store page, only Toonfall popped up. I checked Feed Me Oil and it didn't appear outside my purchases. Both games were delisted. On that day, I immediately made a video about Feed Me Oil's disappearance to hopefully spread the word. I immediately contacted Alexander Illin's LinkedIn, but soon realized he wasn't signed into his LinkedIn account. So I tried other solutions, contacting the company which he works at, which was a subsidiary of Say Games. I even tried contacting them as well to send it to Alexander Illin's company. I even tried sending them a snail mail letter. I still don't know if it happened. Well, of course, I needed to do that because how else am I going to let Alexander know about my big plans? About a few days later, I managed to save the IPA files. Many people had previously saved the older versions of the game, but I myself had to save the newer version through iMazing. However, it was uncracked, which meant that it could only be downloaded on my account. However, a month after Vimeo became delisted off the App Store, I was even more saddened. Feed Me Oil disappeared off my purchases. Now I knew that even though I saved the IPA files, Feed Me Oil would be gone. I was so worried about the day when I tried to play Feed Me Oil and all it said was the app was no longer available on the App Store. I was so worried I became mentally unstable and couldn't connect to society. I may be a little bit biased because I really didn't take a lot of photos during that time period. The saddening thing about it was that there were only 3 out of 8 billion people living in the entire world who talked about female disappearing off the App Store. Me, Dindinaf, and Gamey Stuff. Actually, I had no idea Gamey Stuff would actually talk about female disappearing from the App Store, considering that at that point, in his review of my Explain Them All ports video, he wasn't really going to be interested in playing both Female or Contre Jour since he had never played these games before and that he doesn't really have any interest in them.
I'm guessing one reason you wanted me to review this is to talk about those games. I've never heard of them before. I don't feel much interest in them. I'll think about getting to playing them. While I'll support you on your journey, I'll give a shout out to your mission. If my channel ever gets popular, then I'll make a whole video about it just to please you. Someone has a mission of getting this game to update again. But recently got taken off the App Store, so I'm just making a bit to see if I can get more people's attention about this. I've never actually played this game. I wanted to try to help out. If someone needs to find out how to contact the developer about this, everyone needs to try to get this game back on the App Store and get it updated so it can be played in the future. I don't know much about what's going on here. I just wanted to help somehow. But if you know anything about what to do, just give me that.
However, this sad time wouldn't last forever. On August 25th, 2025, around 1 o'clock a.m. my time, I checked Alexander Illen's page for no particular reason, and suddenly both Female and Female 2 were back on the App Store. Around 3 o'clock a.m., I recorded my dialogue late at night, but I knew I was not allowed to release the video until morning, and when it was morning, I finally released the video. And nowadays, both Female and Female 2 are still on the App Store to this very day, as of late October 2025, the time of recording this video. However, these days, even when making this video, I still worry about what will happen to Female if I don't say anything to Alexander Illen yet. Those 2 months were terrible and I don't want them to happen again. So yeah, that's my history with Female. How to fix Feed Me Oil. And now that I talked about how great the series is, let's talk about how to fix them. First off, let's talk about the first game. Now, unlike Contre Jour, since there wasn't really a lot to talk about, this time there's a lot to talk about Feed Me Oil. First off, make the physics the exact same as they were in the 2011 version, just by simply taking the assets from that version and putting them into a newer update. Oh, and upscaling the quality of the assets as well. Second of all, manage pricing. Since Alexander Illen no longer needs to worry about Chilingo, I can talk about managing pricing. As of now, Feed Me Oil costs $1.99, while Feed Me Oil 2 is 99 cents. However, I'm going to make both games free and also have no advertisements, since in a mobile game world like this, there's no way someone's going to purchase $2.98 to get both games. It's the case with Red Ball 4. Everyone's always going to play the free version that has ads and a game over that you get after dying 5 times. Then you have to wait a boring amount of time to get all 5 lives back. People, you do realize that there is another version of the game that is the full version. Yes, it is $1.99, but this is the full version with no ads and no game over, so that you don't have to worry about dying a whole bunch. I know there isn't an Android version of the premium version, but maybe if FDG Entertainment is listening, then maybe they can make a premium version of the game on Android. Oh, and to all those people who think this is expensive, clearly you've all purchased much more expensive stuff in the past. In fact, I can estimate that the average person spends an average of $16.58 per day on groceries. $504 every month, in fact. So, if you think that even 99 cents is expensive on the App Store, like Rolls Royce expensive, then I don't know what to do here than to make the game free to play and no ads. And unfortunately, there will be microtransactions, but they're optional. This time, I'll add in the red outline hints from the first game and the accurately placed hints from the second game. Pricing will go like this. Disable 1-star hint cooldown timer, $1. Infinitely accurately placed 1-star hints, $5. Infinite red outline 3-star solutions, $10. Infinitely accurately placed 3-star solutions, $20. I know this might seem a little pricey, but I will add in a special treat. If one manages to complete every single level 3-star normal and anti-gravity without using a single hint or solution, then in order to reward them for their hard work, reward them with an infinite number of hints and solutions, either red outlines or accurately placed. My point is to try to make the Feed Meal series the most generous game series in existence. Speaking of generous, since the second game is easy, I will make the prices of the hints half the price, which means disable 1-star hint cooldown timer, 50 cents. Infinitely accurately placed 1-star hints, $2.50. Infinite red outline 3-star solutions, $5. Infinitely accurately placed 3-star solutions, $10. The same reward will go for the second game as well. I feel like these purchases are an important addition, since to update an iOS app, you'd have to pay a whopping $99 annually on your Apple developer account to update an iOS app. Speaking of generosity, I will also add in the level rearranger, unlocked by completing every single level. Doesn't matter if you get all 3 stars or not. It's not quite a level editor, but you can use the pre-made levels to make your own difficulty by rearranging secondary objects, number of elements, path of orange wind, and different types of gravity. 3. Change the difficulty. I want the fact to make sure no solutions to levels provide 4 or 5 unused element solutions. Unfortunately, some levels provide these solutions with no way to add any extra elements while still under 3 stars. Like for example, how else can I add an extra element to get exactly 3 unused elements in 2-14? You can't! The only extra element to use is a platform. How are you going to add a platform into a solution where it isn't so obvious you can skip it? That's why I'm adding difficulty by taking away 1 or 2 elements so that the solutions aren't providing walkthroughs to Game Center achievements. It's also to make some of the levels more difficult and require more outside-of-the-box thinking. 4. Provide settings and extend the music. Most people don't like very short music, but that's only because I found only one negative review of Feed Meal on YouTube. So I've extended music to last around 2 to 1 minutes. Sadly, there's nothing I could do with the 2 music box loops. I've heard some people prefer the low-quality music, what you saw at the beginning. But then I'll put an option in the settings to switch between low and high-quality music. 5. Bring back Chapter 6 from the Windows Phone version and add Chapter 7 for the first game. Since Alexander Illen won't have to worry about Chilingo anymore, he can be free to release the 6th chapter on iOS. But I have plans for a 7th chapter. I know I've already talked about it in my videos before, but I'm gonna do it for completion's sakes. Remember what I said earlier?
Don't you worry, this isn't the last time we'll be talking about those levels. Just you wait and see.
Levels 1 through 4 are the bonus levels, which I've already mentioned before. Levels 5 through 8 are based off of 4 unused level sketches from Feed Meal 2. P.S. On the subject of unused level sketches, Even though there's no image files for them, I can at least calculate that there's over 50 unused levels in Female 2. And I am not exaggerating. Over 50. Who decided it would be a good idea to scrap these levels? Oh wait, EA. Yeah. Level 9 is based off of an idea made by rapper Jackson TTAH, but revamped to a difficult level. Level 10 is based off an unused idea from the first game. Level 11 will have the number 11 be the monster, taking an idea from Antigravity Level 1-3. Level 12 is made by an OG fan of the game made back in 2011. Level 13 will be the Planet Center with the orange wind being the ring, taking ideas from the Infinity Wind bonus level 6-12 and 6-14. Level 14 will introduce a lot of color changing elements, being the toughest level in Female, with the color changing the oil to make the color brown. A nod to the fact that the oil used to look like molten chocolate when Chapter 7 was introduced. And level 15 being a simple drop level saying, "Thank you for playing Female on all these years. I also plan to fly to Spain where he lives so I can discuss these changes." 6. Make both games fit all on the modern day aspect ratio. This one is a really tough one to do, since while I can contact the artist of the second game, Björg Polvinelli, thanks to having an account on Behance.net, the artist for the first game, Nikolai Surin, doesn't have any contacts. I tried searching for him, and while there were a lot of contacts with the name, they were not the correct person. So this means I will have to hire lots of people, including myself and Alexander Ilin, to try to copy the artwork of Nikolai Surin. All this planning will probably take 1 to 2 years to develop, so I hope all of us will stick together on this. At the end of the day, the Female series is still something that's definitely worth the time and energy to look at. As one may expect, I have massive dedication to Female, so much so that over the past few months, I took the time to painstakingly draw and color in every single level from the first game. Yeah, most of them are not perfect, but it goes to show how people still care about these silly little games. So if you enjoyed watching this video, then go ahead to the Apple App Store and download Females 1 and 2. Yes, the state it's in is that the music's broken and only one music track can play, and it might not support new systems. But if you download this game, we're helping Alexander Ilin realize that people still like his games even though they aren't playing him. So, thank you for watching Feed Me Oil, a forgotten iOS classic game series that deserves not to be forgotten. Hello everyone, this is Anselmo Valdez. I want to give some final moments as the credits are going. I want to say that thank you for being able to stick with me throughout this almost 3-hour video, but I want to say some stuff during the credits. First off, I want to say that ever since my Contre Jour video, I've wanted to do the same long documentary for Feed Me Oil, and was able to put the chance to do it. Special thanks goes out to XC3S6Y for giving me his story on Chapter 6. You're doing a great job for trying your best to make Chapter 6 playable again before my visit to Spain. You're doing great. Keep at it. Also, I want to give a special shout out to Gamey Stuff for referencing my favorite Angry Birds character twice in his videos. But also for caring most about the Female series, even though he isn't really interested yet and hasn't ever played it before. Gamey Stuff will at one point do Female, and I can't wait to see it happen. And Gamey Stuff, if you're watching this video, I feel like this is the appropriate thumbnail to use in case if it actually happens. Finally, you've also noticed that this video barely contains any grammatical errors. Well, that's because for this special occasion, I actually did make a script for this video. And yes, I have it right here. I finally want to give myself full credit to Alexander Ilin for making my favorite and the best mobile game series ever. That's all for this video. The credits are just about to wrap up, and I'll see you in the next video. But this next video might take longer to come up since I've talked about everything Female related, my #1 favorite video game series. I'm not sure how I'm going to continue off the channel, so it may take longer to come up with ideas. When an idea comes up that's interesting to me, I'll say it. And finally, one last thing to say, if you're watching this video on the day it's published, I wish Female 2 a very happy 12th birthday.